to Deep Sleep Stories. If these stories have helped you through restless nights, please leave a review. Reviews are what help this podcast grow, reach more listeners, and stay alive. Without them, even something meaningful can slowly disappear. So if this show has brought you comfort, that small act truly helps keep it going. Now, settle in, and let's begin.
Welcome to Deep Sleep Stories, a gentle place where the day can soften at the edges and drift away. Tonight's tale will wander through a hidden garden to find the fountain of quiet wishes, where hopes are spoken so softly that even the stars lean in to listen. Settle in exactly as you are. Let the surface beneath you hold your weight with steady patience. Allow your shoulders to loosen as if warm hands are untying small knots there, one by one. Let your jaw unclench. Let your tongue rest. Let your brow smooth, like calm water after a pebble has sunk out of sight. Imagine the air around you is cool and clean, touched with a faint scent of night-blooming flowers and rain on stone. With each breath in, draw in ease. With each breath out, let go of whatever you carried too long. There is nowhere you need to go in this moment, nothing you must solve. Inhale slowly, as if you are sipping something warm. Exhale gently, as if you are blowing on a candle flame without putting it out. If thoughts arrive, let them pass like quiet lanterns floating down a dark river. You do not need to chase them. You do not need to name them. Just notice how they drift, and how the river keeps moving, and how the night remains kind. Now let the story begin like a door opening without a sound. Somewhere beyond the busy corners of the waking world, there was a valley that rarely appeared on any map. It did not hide out of fear, but out of tenderness. The way certain feelings stay private until they are safe to share. Mist often gathered there at dusk, curling around trees and stones like pale silk. And the air carried a hush so complete that it seemed the valley had learned an ancient language made of pauses. A traveler came to this valley on an evening when the sky was brushed with twilight blues and the first stars trembled into being. The traveler's name was Elowen, and Elowen did not arrive with grand plans or loud footsteps. There was simply a sense of being gently pulled, as if something unseen had tied a soft ribbon from Elowen's heart to a place waiting in the dark. Elowen's cloak was the color of pine needles after rain. A small satchel rested against a hip, and inside it were simple things. Bread wrapped in cloth, a smooth stone found beside a creek, a folded note with a few kind words written long ago and kept like a pressed flower. Elowen walked without hurry because the path itself seemed to ask for slowness. Each step pressed into earth that felt cool and springy, fragrant with moss and fallen leaves. The valley offered quiet signs to those who moved gently enough to notice. A moth with wings like silver ash hovered near a cluster of pale blossoms. A stream braided itself around roots, murmuring with a voice too soft to call attention to itself. Far above, An owl glided between branches, like a thought that had decided to be kind. Elowen followed a narrow trail that wound through trees that leaned inward, not to block the way, but to form a sheltered arch. The leaves overhead shifted with the faintest breeze, and the sound was like hands brushing over velvet. The deeper Elowen went, the more the air seemed to change. It grew sweeter, as if it had been filtered through petals. It grew calmer, as if the valley itself were breathing slowly. In time, the trail brought Elowen to a small clearing. It was not the sort of clearing that demanded attention. It looked, at first glance, like a simple pocket of open space among the trees. But the longer Elowen stood there, the more it revealed itself, as though the clearing enjoyed being discovered gradually. Moonlight spilled down in soft layers, painting the grass in pale silver. Ferns circled the edges, their fronds curled like sleeping cats. In the center rested a stone basin, low and wide, shaped from rock that glimmered faintly as though it remembered starlight from another age. This was the fountain of quiet wishes. Water flowed within it, not in a rushing stream, not in a loud spray, but in a slow, steady rise from a hidden spring beneath the stone. It welled up like a thought forming gently, and then overflowed in a thin, continuous veil, sliding down the basin's sides into a ring of smooth pebbles. The sound it made was delicate, like whispering, like a promise not to disturb anyone sleeping nearby. Elowen approached with the careful reverence reserved for places that feel alive. The fountain's rim was cool under fingertips, and the stone held a faint warmth within it, as if it had once sat in sunlight and still remembered. The water's surface was clear enough to reflect the moon, but it did not mirror in a sharp way. It softened reflections, turning them into dream images. On the far side of the clearing stood a small bench, carved from an old fallen tree. Moss padded its seat, and tiny pale mushrooms grew at its feet, like little lamps that had forgotten how to shine brightly. Elowen sat there and listened. At first there was only the fountain's quiet flow and the gentle breath of night. But soon another layer of sound appeared, subtle as a sigh. It was so faint it could have been imagined, and yet it had a shape to it, a rhythm, a softness that felt like meaning. The wishes, they did not arrive like spoken sentences. They arrived like feelings carried on breath, like the ache of wanting something tender and safe, like the warmth of gratitude, the ache of missing, the longing to forgive, the hope to begin again. The fountain of quiet. Wishes gathered these things the way a pond gathers moonlight. The valley had a way of collecting what people could not say out loud. Long ago, it was said, the fountain had been found by someone who had wandered too far from home and too far from themselves. That person had sat beside the basin and wept without sound. And when the tears fell into the water, the fountain had answered, not with words, but with stillness. The kind of stillness that makes room for a heart to settle. person had made a wish then, not for riches or applause or anything sharp and glittering, but for quiet peace. The fountain had held that wish like a cupped hand, and the valley had decided to keep a place where such wishes could be offered and received. Over time, those who needed it most found their way here, not crowds, not shouting seekers, but solitary souls with tired hearts. They came at dusk, or under moonlight, or in the gray hush before dawn. They sat, they listened, and when they were ready, they leaned close and let a wish slip into the water. The fountain did not promise to change the world overnight. It did not claim to fix what was broken with a snap of magic. Its gift was gentler than that. It made wishes quieter, lighter to carry. It helped them settle into the soil of the spirit where, in time, something new could grow. Elowen had heard the fountain mentioned in half-finished stories told by firelight, always as a place of peace, always as a place that could not be found by force. Elowen had not come to demand anything, only to rest, only to offer something heavy, if the night allowed. A breeze wandered through the clearing, stirring the ferns. The fountain's water shivered, and on its surface, a pale glow formed, soft as milk, faint as fog. It gathered in little drifting shapes, like tiny petals made of light. They floated above the basin for a moment and then drifted outward, dissolving into the air. Elowen watched, feeling a slow calm spread through the chest, as if the body had been waiting for permission to relax. From the shadows near the trees, a small figure appeared. Not startling, not sudden, more like a part of the clearing that had decided to move. It was a fox, slender and quiet, with fur the color of dusk and eyes that held a steady, gentle intelligence. A faint shimmer traced the edges of its ears, as if the moon had chosen to rest there. The fox approached the fountain, padded across the grass, and sat near the ring of pebbles, its tail curled neatly around its paws. It looked at Elowen without fear, as though it recognized something familiar in a traveler who had come to be still. In old valleys like this, animals often carried stories in their bones. They knew where the soft places were. They knew where worry could be set down. The fox lowered its head and drank from a little stream that trickled away from the fountain's overflow. As it drank, the air seemed to grow even quieter, as if the world were politely holding its breath. Elowen remained on the bench, hands resting loosely, palms warm, fingers relaxed. The mind, which had spent so much time running, began to slow. Thoughts arrived more softly now. Some of them did not need to be followed. Some of them simply loosened their grip and drifted away. The fox finished drinking and looked toward the basin. Then it stood and stepped closer, placing one paw on the stone rim. With the care of a creature that understands sacred things, it dipped its paw into the water and lifted it again. A single droplet clung there, shimmering. The droplet did not fall. It hovered, suspended, glowing faintly. The fox tilted its head and the droplet floated from its paw toward Elowen, drifting like a tiny lantern. Elowen did not reach out quickly. There was no urgency in the clearing, but hands lifted slowly, cupped as if to receive a delicate moth without crushing its wings. The droplet settled into Elowen's palms, and instead of feeling wet, it felt warm, like a small comfort, like the memory of sunlight on skin. Inside the warmth was something else, a picture soft-edged and gentle, a glimpse of a path winding through trees, a hint of a garden beyond, an invitation, wordless, calm. Elowen understood. The Fountain of Quiet Wishes was not only a place to sit, it was also a doorway into the valley's deeper quiet, a guide to the places where wishes were tended the way gardens are tended, with patience, with time, with faith in small growth. Elowen stood from the bench. The fox stepped away from the fountain and began to walk toward a narrow opening between two ancient trees. It did not hurry, and it did not look back in an anxious way. It simply moved with the certainty of a creature following a familiar trail. Elowen followed. If it had stored moonlight in its fibers, if it had stored moonlight in its fibers. The air carried a subtle perfume, not sweet in a sharp way, but calm and herbal, like crushed leaves and distant lavender. The path was not made of gravel or dirt. It seemed woven from shadow and light, each step falling on a patch of silver or a patch of dusk. Elowen walked quietly, feeling the body grow lighter with each breath, as if something unseen were smoothing the edges of fatigue. They passed a small pond where lilies floated like sleepy boats. The water reflected the sky, and in the reflection the stars looked as though they were resting on the surface, unwilling to move. A frog sat on a stone at the edge, perfectly still, as if practicing a meditation of its own. Farther on, the path curved past a grove of birch trees whose pale trunks gleamed like quiet candles. Their leaves trembled softly, and the sound was like paper being turned in a book that told only kind stories. The fox led Elowen to a low stone arch covered in ivy. The arch was old enough that its stones had rounded at the edges, and the ivy had grown into its cracks like green lace. Beyond the arch, a garden opened, hidden, sheltered, and filled with a gentle, silvery light. This garden was not formal or strict. It was wild in a peaceful way, as if it had decided that beauty did not need to be controlled to be beautiful. Soft grasses swayed. Flowers bloomed in clusters like small gatherings of friendly faces. There were pale blue blossoms shaped like little bells, and creamy flowers that looked like folded silk, and tiny star-shaped blooms sprinkled through the grass like scattered wishes. In the center of the garden was a second basin, smaller than the fountains, carved from a pale stone that seemed almost translucent. It was empty of water, but not empty of presence. Around it grew plants with leaves like velvet and stems that shimmered faintly. Elowen stepped closer. The fox sat near the basin, watching. In the garden's hush, the traveler could hear something else now, a deeper quiet beneath the quiet, a stillness that felt like the earth's slow heartbeat. the edge of the basin, there was a small bowl made of clay filled with smooth seeds. They were pale, almost pearl-like, and when moonlight touched them, they glimmered. Elowen recognized them in a vague way, like remembering a dream. These were wish seeds. Not every wish became a seed. Only the quiet wishes did. The ones made without spectacle, without demand. Wishes for rest, wishes for forgiveness, wishes for small kindness, wishes for the courage to be gentle with oneself, wishes for a soft tomorrow. Elowen took a seed between finger and thumb. It felt light, almost weightless, and yet it held a faint warmth, like a tiny ember that did not burn. Beside the basin was a patch of dark soil, rich and soft. Elowen knelt, feeling the moss cushion the knees, and pressed the wish seed into the earth. The movement was simple, careful, like tucking in a sleeping child. Then Elowen covered it with soil and patted the surface smooth. No dramatic flash followed, no thunder, no sudden change. Only the steady, quiet presence of the garden, the fox's calm gaze, and the feeling that something had been placed exactly where it belonged. Elowen sat back on heels and let hands rest on thighs. The breath moved in and out like gentle tides. Somewhere nearby, a night insect sang a thin, steady note, not loud, just present. In the garden, time behaved differently. It did not march. It drifted. It settled. It curled up like a cat in a warm spot. Elowen stayed there for a while, letting the mind empty and fill and empty again. Thoughts came like clouds and passed. Feelings rose like bubbles and popped without drama. The traveler did not need to analyze any of it. The garden did not ask for explanations. It only offered space. Eventually, a faint change appeared in the soil where the seed had been planted. Not a sprout, not yet, but a soft glow beneath the surface, like moonlight filtered through earth. The glow pulsed slowly, matching the rhythm of Elowen's breath. The fox stood and walked toward a low hedge of fragrant herbs at the garden's edge. It nosed gently through the leaves and then returned with a single small sprig in its mouth. The herb's scent drifted through the air, calming, clean, like a lullaby made of plants. The fox set the sprig near Elowen's knee and looked up. It was not a command. It was an offering. Elowen picked up the sprig, rubbed it gently between fingers, and breathed in the scent. It seemed to loosen something inside the ribs. A quiet ache softened. A tired tension eased its grip. In that moment, Elowen remembered something simple and true. That rest was not something to earn, that peace was allowed, that being gentle was not weakness. It was wisdom. The garden seemed to respond, not by changing, but by deepening. The light grew softer, the shadows more velvety. The stars overhead looked closer, as if they had leaned down to listen. Elowen rose slowly. The fox began to walk again, leaving the garden through a different archway woven from branches and pale vines. Elowen followed, stepping back into the forest's quiet corridors. The path this time led toward a hillside. As the ground rose, the air became cooler, and the scent of pine grew stronger. The trees opened onto a small lookout, where the valley could be seen like a sleeping creature beneath the sky. Mist curled through low places. A river glimmered faintly, tracing a slow curve like a silver ribbon. On the hillside sat a stone circle made of rounded boulders that looked as if they had been placed there long ago by patient hands. At the center of the circle, a single flat stone served as a seat. The fox padded into the circle and lay down near the edge, tucking its nose beneath its tail. Elowen sat on the flat stone. From here, the sounds of the valley were even softer. The fountain was far away now, but its hush seemed to reach even this place like a quiet song carried on the wind. The traveler's breathing slowed further, each inhale smooth, each exhale long and unforced. In the stone circle, the sky felt enormous. Stars hung like scattered seeds themselves. The moon, round and calm, shone with a gentle steadiness, as if it had promised to watch over everyone who needed a little extra care. Elowen rested hands on the knees, palms down, feeling the cool fabric of the cloak, the steady presence of the stone beneath. The body felt heavy in a pleasant way now, as if it had remembered how to be supported. A strange thing happened then. Subtle and sweet. In the air above the stone circle, tiny lights began to appear. They were not fireflies exactly, though they had the same soft glow. These lights moved slowly, drifting in small arcs. They gathered near Elowen, not crowding, just floating like gentle companions. Each light carried a feeling, quiet and tender. One felt like relief. Another felt like gratitude. Another felt like the warmth of a friend's hand held in silence. Another felt like the comfort of being understood without having to explain. They were the quiet wishes lifted from the fountain's basin and carried through the valley, finding places where they could settle. In the stone circle, they hovered as if to bless the traveler with their softness. Elowen watched them, eyelids growing heavy. The mind did not try to name each feeling, it simply received. The lights drifted closer and then farther, like slow breathing made visible. The fox stirred, opened its eyes briefly, then closed them again, perfectly at ease. The valley seemed to hum with a low, peaceful energy. Not loud, not intense, but steady and kind. Elowen's shoulders dropped a little more, the jaw softened, the hands relaxed until the fingers curved naturally. A memory surfaced, not a sharp memory, but a gentle one. It was the memory of a childhood evening, perhaps, when sleep had come easily, when the world had felt safe, when tomorrow had been far enough away not to matter. The memory did not demand anything. It simply wrapped around Elowen like a blanket. The lights continued to drift. Some rose into the sky and disappeared among the stars. Some floated down the hillside, weaving between trees like slow-moving dreams. Elowen remained in the circle until the air grew colder and the mist thickened below like a soft sea. The traveler stood at last, moving as if made of calm water. The fox rose too, stretching in a languid way, then began to walk back down the hillside. They returned to the forest, where the path seemed even gentler than before. The moss glowed faintly beneath their steps. The trees stood like quiet guardians. The night felt deep and protective, as though it had decided to keep watch. When they reached the clearing again, the fountain of quiet wishes waited, unchanged and patient. The basin's water still rose and spilled over in its steady veil. The ring of pebbles still gleamed softly. The bench still sat in its mossy comfort. Elowen approached the fountain and stood at its edge. The traveler leaned close, not in a dramatic way, but in a small, intimate way, as if speaking to a friend who understood silence. A wish formed, not a complicated one, not a wish that required a list of conditions, simply a quiet wish for rest, for ease, for the ability to meet the coming days with softness instead of strain. Elowen breathed the wish out, letting it slip into the air and into the water without force. The fountain accepted it the way earth accepts rain. The surface of the water shimmered. A pale glow gathered at the center, then spread outward in gentle ripples. The ripples touched the stone rim, touched the pebbles, touched the grass, touched the air. The clearing seemed to grow warmer by a small, comforting degree, like a room after a fire has been lit. The fox sat near the bench and looked up at Elowen, eyes half-lidded, calm and content. In its stillness was a message. Nothing more was needed. The wish had been offered. The valley had heard. Elowen sat on the bench again, letting the body sink into mossy softness. The sound of the fountain became a lullaby, repetitive and soothing. The trees overhead swayed, their leaves whispering like quiet pages, turning in a story that never hurried. Gradually, the clearing's edges seemed to blur, as if the world were preparing to become a dream. The moonlight softened further, turning everything into gentle shapes and shadows. The fountain's water looked like liquid silver flowing endlessly, calmly, like time itself when it is kind. Elowen's eyes grew heavy. The traveler's breathing matched the fountain's rhythm. Slow rise, gentle spill, slow rise, gentle spill. The thoughts that remained were drowsy and distant. The body felt safe, supported, warm beneath the cloak. The fox curled up on the grass near the bench, tail wrapped close, a small, quiet guardian of the night. Its breathing was slow, too, a tiny, steady sign that everything was well, and became part of the sky. They did not and became part of the sky. They did not rush. They did not demand. They simply moved with patience, with tenderness, with the calm certainty that gentle things matter. The fountain kept flowing, steady and unbothered by time. The bench kept holding. The forest kept breathing. An Elowen traveler in the hidden valley began to drift into sleep, not as an escape, but as a return to something natural and safe. The air grew even softer. The sounds grew even smaller. The story itself slowed, like a river entering a wide, quiet lake. Elowen's shoulders eased. The hands rested. The face smoothed into peaceful stillness. In the clearing, the moon watched quietly. A calm light in the dark. In the fountain, the water rose and spilled, a gentle reminder that everything can move without strain. The fox slept, the trees swayed, the wishes, quiet and kind, settled into the world like downy feathers, and the valley held all of it, held it the way night holds the sleeping earth, with patient, loving care. The last waking thoughts softened into something wordless. The breath became slow and deep. The body became heavy in the best way. The mind became a wide, open sky with no need for clouds. Soon, even the story's footsteps faded. Only the hush remained. Only the soft flow of the fountain. Only the feeling of being safe, supported, and allowed to rest. Good night, dear traveler. Sleep well.